Hey, what's up, Dean Sear Performance? We are working on the Trans Am again, and we'll start with what we did do. So this morning, well, yesterday, I got the spacers made for the alternator to push it out. So now it's lined up way better. I got to move the belt back, make sure it's all good there. But then I came over. I got the Mac valves wired to a Deutsch connector. Then the backside of the Deutsch connector going across. Then the two down there, the two pink ones to a Deutsch connector. So those are my power for the line lock and the Mac valves. Then this is the line lock. I put a single plug connector on that. That goes inside the firewall. Then the Mac valves run back there and across to that Deutsch connector, which I label so that you know, fill positive, vent negative. So that's to there. This is the dome pressure sensor. And I cut the 4-pin plug off these two here. One is ground green. I can't remember what green is. I can't remember what green is, to be honest with you. In the auxiliary connector, so I don't need those. But what I did with this, I only used 2 out of the 4, but I jumped the sensor ground and the 5-volt reference to the top, so that if we need to add in anything else, we can just right here pull these out, open the plug, take the lock out, stab in wires, and we can do that. Then I got the rest of the inputs and outputs right here that all have to go inside the car, but they're going to need to be extended, I believe. So I'm going to make that work, but I'm not sure what these 2 wires are for. So I got to get the car on the lift and look at it. So now we're moving inside, and you got to take the lower panel off from under the steering column, and then I see it again. We've got the 2 wires together with the tape, which we already know is going to be nothing else other than the tape. Then you've got this red wire, this is for the tack, which we used a bread tie. And you got the tack wire. It's just all like I don't get it, you know. I really don't. Looks like there's a relay here, most likely for the trans brake. Bunch of tape on it, bunch of other things, and those go up and into the column to be on the steering. This is the trans brake, this is the line lock. So you got those there, which I just got to switch. Then you got another one. So we take this is for ignition. I know brown is an ignition, so I think that's the Keon ignition tape. So we know that's going to be stripped wire in there. Then I follow this red one, and I find back in there, you can kind of see it. Now I cannot tell if, to me that looks like liquid tape. But you know, not really sure what we got going on here. So I don't know if I need to pull this connector out. I'll probably have to pull this connector out to make room for myself to be able to get all of this mess apart, because I gotta get it apart, get it fixed. I mean, all of it just looks like somebody smashed a bunch of liquid tape in there. So hopefully nothing's messed up, none of the wires are too bad. So I'm gonna work on that. I'm gonna get this out. It's one of those fancy 7.5mm sockets to pull the plug apart. I'm gonna get that apart, and then I'm gonna try and figure out where the rest of these wires are going. I think this is the light that goes over to here for something. I don't really know. That might be the line lock, but it's just a hot mess. Yeah, I see a red wire coming back, red and black. So yeah, I have no idea. What in the hell? I don't know. Yeah, I'm gonna sort this out and figure out what's what. All right, so I got 2 wires pulled through. What I did was I just ran those 2 through the firewall. That's this piece here. It goes down over to the firewall. I ran them into, I pinned the TCS battery and I believe the air pump. Yeah, so this 20 amp and this 15 amp had no pins on the output side, so I added pins with wires. They're just like the factory pins, so you can't actually tell. I can't take it off, but can't really tell that anything changed. But fuse box is there, might as well use it. I could have done it to like these 2 relays and used those relays, but I don't think they're in there. No, see, I would have had to repin the whole box because there's no terminals in there at all. So we're gonna use those 2 wires to power, basically feed battery and key on. So this is what I found. This was that liquid tape one. It was just wrapped with solder. There's another one there, and see all these sharp edges, like where the end of the wire is? That's what kind of screws you when you do half-ass. This can, it'll poke through, it'll touch. This is just a gobbled up mess with 2 extra wires that were cut back. I don't even know. But they did run it to a fuse. It's 25 amp fuse, and then fed both relays. One is trans brake and one is line lock. This is our line lock wire right here. It's got that black wrap on it. And then I believe this black one is going to be the trans brake. But I am going to undo most of this, and I imagine this red wire going out is that light right there, so that when it triggers, it turns that light on and you could see it. But being that it's the fancy electrical tape, I imagine it's just wrapped, or it may be stuffed in there. I don't know, but why would you wrap electrical tape on it? But I'll get all this cleaned up and cut down, and the tack wires, I'll probably put those on a Deutsch connector. That's these 4 right here. One is light, power, signal, ground. So I'll change all of this and shorten it up. And then there's this little red wire is the fuel level, power, and then I am assuming this one is fuel level ground. So I'm not gonna mess with those. They go up to a chassis ground. It's a dirty ground, but it's fine. So yeah, I am going to try to sort this out without tearing everything apart. And then I gotta run my inputs over and my output, so that I could finish wiring everything up. But I'm gonna get all of this cleaned up first, and then go from there. So got the car up on the lift, taking a look at everything. It's got a nice 9-inch rear end. I'm probably gonna assume it's a quick performance. It's kind of what it looks like. It's got just standard shock. It's got some BMR springs, so nothing crazy in the back. It's got lower adjustable links that look like they are wound out differently, but we're not looking upgraded, I guess upgraded or whatever. Transmission mount and torque arm mount. Got definitely a better drive shaft. Chromoly yoke. It looks like it's too long. So he originally said it was a lockup converter. I asked him because that was what was in the original file, but it is not a lockup converter. This is for the trans brake. I changed everything. I put a Deutsch connector on it. The ground was right here on this heat panel, so I took that off, put it all nice tape. Deutsch connector up in, but this is where your lockup would be on the Turbo 400. It would come out of this plug right here. So maybe the converter is a lockup converter, but the transmission is definitely not provisioned for lockup. So it eliminates that. Speedometer's plugged off, which kind of stinks. I mean, I assume, no, probably would have to take the tail shaft off and put a gear on it and figure all that out. It's got all the knock sensors. Those two wires that I couldn't figure out come down to the factory oil pressure sensor that's been relocated to the little ICT billet, like port adapter thing. So that's how he's feeding his turbo. Then I looked at his turbo drain, and it comes, I mean, that's halfway down the oil pan. So 5 quarts of oil is probably going to be, you know, a pretty good level, pretty high level anyways. So your drain is below your oil level. That's wrong. And then it goes up, downhill, and this was actually zip tied up a little bit higher here. So then it goes downhill through there and then back up to the bottom of the turbo. It's not really anything I could do about that. So kind of is what it is. It is what it is. From down here, the alternator looks really good. So, I mean, the belt could stay there. It could go back one groove. He just needs to get a new belt. And then the power steering pump is on a different groove. So that pulley is set back a little bit too far. No, it's set forward too far. So maybe those spacers are just a touch too short, but that's okay. Yeah, so it's got, you know, exhaust that comes down across, basically sits not even 2 finger widths under the converter. So I'm gonna get the converter really, really hot. I'm not a fan of doing that, crossing over here. I personally would have come back and then across here, maybe, you know, behind the transmission mount if you want to dump it out there. But holy boogers. So somebody had no idea how to even MIG weld, and then figured the grinder clean her right up. So a nice piece of stainless. They didn't do horrible there, but nice piece of stainless, MIG welded to death. So that's all right. It's okay. See, like this is on 3 welds. That's how their kit is. So I'm not sure where this went. I know it comes as a kit, and I think it connects and goes all the way back. I can't remember. But it's just a little 3-inch downpipe and like a 38 millimeter wastegate that has absolutely terrible priority. The 2 exhaust runs are like the ram horns that come up and flow straight into the turbo, so the wastegate gets no priority. Ideally, you would want the wastegate off a bend, like off a bend, straight down like this. You could turn it afterwards because the exhaust is still going to go into it, but that's kind of bad. Another bolt. Instead of the little plug, they just put another bolt. I'm going to assume the wastegate's shot. but you know, can only do so much with so little time. So yeah, so I got the trans brake run up there. I'm gonna lower the car down, tugged a little bit of slack out of it. There's only a few inches of slack left in it. And then probably head out of here today. He doesn't need the car.